Welcome back. Let's build a simple contact form in this lecture. To be honest, this section was not so much about making things beautiful and functional, but more to show you everything you need to know about forms, so that you can build even bigger and more complex forms in the future. So, this is a simple contact form as you can find it in numerous websites out there. And in this lecture, you learn a lot of new things. You learn how to build a useful form using new HTML elements such as form, label, input, select, option, and text area. Then you will learn how to use CSS to format those different elements. So let's do this. So back in our brackets app, we'll create yet another section. This one called section form. And once again, we create a row here where we will put our title. So let's get the text for this section. That's not a lot this time. So the title is this one. And now let's create our form, and we will do that in a row. So div, class, and row again. Now a form is like a group of input elements, and we have an HTML element where we need to put all of them, and this element is called the form element, and it needs to have a couple of attributes. One is the method. You will choose post here, but this is not relevant for us in this case because this is only needed when we send this form, and that requires a lot of programming and other languages, and we will not talk about this in this course. So in this course we will only format this form, but we will not be able to send anything from it. So another attribute that we need to define is the action, which is like a link. So it is empty in this case, and the action could be the script which handles how the form will be sent, which again we will not talk about in this specific course. And then also a class. I will call this contact form. Alright, now we can fill this form with our elements, and we will put a couple of rows in here, and in each of those rows we will then have our different input elements. So we will have one column for the label, for example name, email address, or something like that, and then one column for the input element. So it is a column, and now it's something a little special because we want one column to be bigger than the other one. And so I will say that I want the first column to be a span 1 of 3, such as we used a lot of times before. And then the second column will be span 2 of 3. So these two columns together make the whole row. So 1 plus 2 makes the 3. And this means that this column will be twice as wide as this column here. And I will actually show you how this works. So the 1 of 3 has a width of 32% approximately, and the span 2 of 3 will have 63% approximately. Alright. So as I said, in the first column we want the label, and we have an HTML element for that, which goes like this. It's just label and then let me see, it is name. The first one is name. And that's it for now. And now we want a little text box. And in order to do that, we use the input element, and the type of this will be text. So you can see in this list here there are lots of different input types, and we will use some of them. But for now, I will just use the text element. And now in each of those, we should also give those a name, because that name will later be used to send that form. Let's call it name, because that's what it is here, right? And now I will also define an ID here, which is also name. And another interesting thing we can do here is placeholder. And the placeholder is the text that appears inside of the text field before we write anything inside of it. So here I will say, for example, your name. And the last thing here, we just can add this keyword required, and if we do so, the browser will not allow us to send a form without completing this field. So this is very handy. We can just write required, and then Google Chrome or whatever browser will handle that for us. Okay, I will just show you how this looks like by now. Nothing special, of course, but here it goes. So this is a placeholder, and this is the first column, and this is the second column. As you see, it's much wider. The text field is not as wide as the column yet, but we will change that once we come to the CSS part of this lecture. So for now, let's continue, and I will keep on adding some rows here. So the next one is for the email. So I will change it here, and we can actually also change the type here to email, because that's one of the possible HTML input types, and so the browser will recognize that you need to write an email inside of the field. We'll also call this email, and here your email. And this field is also required and can also only be sent if a valid email address was written inside of that field. Okay, so yet another line is, what do we have here? How did you find us? So here we can put a little drop down box. We will not use this. So drop down box is just a couple of options where you can choose one from. And in order to do that, we use the select element, and we'll call us find us, and also with the ID find us. And I will tell you in a moment why we need this IDs here. So don't worry. And now, each of the options that we want here needs to be defined using the option element. And we need to specify a value. I will do that in a moment. And then the text we want to see. So in the first one, I want to say, so how did you find us? Let's say friends, and the value can here be friends. And again, this value here serves then for the script that will handle the form once the form is sent, which again we will not be able to do in this course. So next, what can we put here? For instance, search engine. So search. or maybe it was an advertisement. And just to complete this, we can say we found it in some other way. Alright, so how does it look like? So we have the options we put there inside of this little list. So this is starting to look great, right? And we can also do another thing here. We can choose one of these and say selected. I will choose this one. This will be the first one that will be selected. You see? Search engine. Alright, I don't want this here. Let's put it here. Now the next thing is to ask us if we want a newsletter. So again, we want a row with the label newsletter. And I will now show you another input type, and this one is checkbox. So a checkbox is just what the name says. It's a box where you can choose yes, I want it, or no, I don't want it. And the name here will be newsletter or just news, and the ID also news. Placeholder, there's of course none of it. And here I can say that I want this checkbox to be checked from the beginning. So the default will be that it is checked. And then some text here. For instance, yes please. So it's already selected, and then we have our text there. So just a simple checkbox. Now the last thing is drop us a line. So that means that this is a field where we can write some email, some message. And in order to do that, we want a bigger text box. Copy this here. So we will use something different because we want a big text area, and that's exactly the name of the HTML element. And this also needs some attributes. So I will call this name message, and it can also have a placeholder like your message. Okay, and then the last thing each form should of course have is a submit button. So we don't want anything in here because we want the button to be aligned with the fields of this form. And such as I did in the section before, I will use the NBSP special character so that we have a invisible space there. And the button is also an inbox element, and it's called submit. And doesn't need any of this, but it has the value attribute where we will put the text we want to see on the button. And in this place just say send it. We don't need these. So save this and let's see. So this is a bigger text field, and we can actually resize this in Google Chrome. And then a button. And as you see, this field, since I didn't fill it out, Google Chrome tells me please fill out this field. And if I do, it will now say fill this out. And now since I said this would be an email field, Google Chrome knows that I should include the special symbol here in the email address. So one last thing is, as I promised you, I would explain you why I included these name IDs here, and that's for a simple reason, because here in the label we can use the for attribute and then put the name of the ID here. So we kind of link the label with the input, and this is what happens. So now we can click this, and then the field gets selected. Cool, right? Do this for the other ones as well. For email, and this actually only works with text forms and also with this select element. So this one is find us, but it doesn't work with the checkbox and neither with the text area. So I will just leave it like this, and now if I click here, this gets selected. Okay, I think for the HTML part that's it. And so in the next lecture we will just format this to make it look great, such as we always do. Alright, so see you there.